I'm ready.
Given the anticipated $6 billion shortfall,
Mhm.
this session is going to require implementing a number of cost-saving measures. Will you please talk about some of the things you're looking into in order to save money?
Well, there are a number of things the legislature is looking at in general. This is, by the way, an unprecedented budget deficit. It's the largest budget deficit in state history. So there's going to virtually be no corner of state government that is not going to feel the budget axe this time around, unfortunately. Some of the things that I'm looking at particularly, first of all, what I want to preserve before I cut anything is K-12 education. That's probably our most important function here, so I want to preserve as much funding as we can. But even that is going to experience some cuts in service. But what I'm looking at, first of all, are a lot of the tax preferences that we have extended to various groups throughout the years. Actually, many of them have existed for decades. I'll give you one quick example that we had a hearing regarding the other day in committee, and that was a B&O tax credit to country clubs for initiation and dues. And we thought, I'm not sure that makes sense at this point in time, so we'll be looking at those exemptions that we have given, in some cases businesses and in some cases organizations, as a way of bringing money back into the legislature so that we don't have to cut more critical services. So one other thing we'll look at, some sentencing reform with regard to our prison system that might get some people out of jail a little bit sooner, cuts down costs. So we'll see if we can deal with that as well.
Since joining the legislature in 2005, you've been engaged in a number of housing issues.
Yes.
Why is this so important to you?
Well, if you look at the current economic crisis that the nation is in, what precipitated it? It was a downturn in the housing market. The housing market in many ways is one of the linchpins of our entire economy. So what I have worked on for the last several years is trying to find ways to get working class families to afford housing, particularly in the Puget Sound Basin. We have, and I've used this number before, prior to this meltdown, median family income in King County, for example, $74,000 a year, qualifies the family to buy a home costing about $250,000, $270,000. Median priced home in King County was $500,000. So working class families can't afford normal housing, particularly in the Puget Sound Basin. So it's critical that we find more supply.
The population in Washington state has grown by nearly 1 million people within the last 10 years, resulting in a lack of housing within heavily populated regions.
Right.
How do you plan to accommodate the projected increase of Washington residents?
Well, it's a great question, and I participated in the Urban Land Institute's reality check process we had back in April. It was a day-long event where we brought hundreds of people together to discuss that specific issue. And I'll give you one more number that's even more scary. In the next 32 years, there's a projected population increase in Washington, in the 4-county Puget Sound Basin, of 1.7 million more from this day forward for 32 years. If that's the case, if those numbers are even remotely accurate, then we have to have more housing supply. And if we're going to put more housing supply in that basin and still protect our sensitive areas and our agricultural areas, it's going to have to be dense, multifamily housing in urban cores. And communities are going to have to grapple with a real tough political decision. Do I want to preserve the Sammamish Valley for farmland? And if I do, then I'm going to have to take more density in my neighborhood or in my community. And those issues, I think, are critical to our quality of life. It has a huge impact on our transportation system too, because if you get a job in King County and you live in Arlington, what do? You travel 2.5 hours a day back and forth to work. We have to build a freeway to do that. That's just crazy. It's not sustainable. We've got to have a better model for housing, and I'm dedicated to making sure that we make progress there.